Chinese names, how do they work? What in the world is a courtesy name? And why are Chinese surnames always something like Li or Wang? I'm Jared Madsen, and today on Learn Chinese Now, we're going to go over the basic how, what, and whys of Chinese naming practices, and maybe even a little history. All right, so let's start with the basics. First off, what the heck is a surname? A surname is a family name. It is what we often call the last name. So if you hear me say surname, last name, or family name, that's all the same thing. East Asian names, including Korean and Japanese ones, start with the surname first. In China and Korea, this is usually one character, though there are exceptions like Sima and Zhuge. This is followed by the given name, right? Or the person's their own name, their personal name, which in China can be both one or two characters based on personal preference, but frequently unique and always with meaning. Now that we understand the structure, let's talk last names, right? Let's talk surnames. Why does it seem like there are so few of them? In America, there are over 150,000 last names, often passed down from a myriad of European heritages or derived from ancestral occupations. So for instance, baker, right? The bakers, they're obviously carpenters, right? China, however, has about 4,000 family names, many dating back thousands of years from pre-dynastic periods. And even then, 87% of Chinese people share a meager 100 surnames, passed down from the original progenitors of the Han Chinese ethnic group. These are called the Lao Bai Xing, literally old 100 surnames, a term which is also used to refer to the average citizen or common folk. Among them, some flourished over the course of the rise and fall of dynasties and clans, such as Li, best known as the surname of the Tang Dynasty emperors, and Wang, surname of noble families that thrived from around the Qin dynasty. You may have seen similar sounding names with different spellings, like Zheng. Okay, so sometimes you see Zheng with a Z, sometimes a C, sometimes it's Z-H-A-N-G, sometimes it's C-H-U-E-N-G. There's all different ones. There's like Zhou and Chou, and like it's hard to tell, right? That's a result of different romanization schemes and dialects. So for example, in China, the surname Zhang is romanized with a Z according to the pinyin system, whereas in Taiwan, it starts with a C, right? C-H-A-N-G, according to the Wade-Giles system. For dialects like Cantonese, used in places like Hong Kong, the difference in pronunciation means it ends up being romanized as C-H-E-U-N-G. Even though these three people seem to have different last names, they're technically all the same. Same for these. If you get other dialects like Hakka, also known as Kejia, and Minnan involved, there can be a lot more variations, sometimes. Now, sometimes they're actually different characters. Okay, here we go, we're getting into it. Li and Li, Wang and Wang, Jiang and Jiang, because Chinese also has a bunch of tones that English doesn't really have. There are also surnames that have the same tone though. There is Jiang and there is also Jiang. It is the exact same pronunciation, but those are two separate characters with two separate meanings, right? There is also Yu, and then there's this Yu. Can't really help you there. So good luck, I guess. Learn Chinese now. As for first names, this is where it gets, last names wasn't complicated enough, this is where it gets complicated. Because there are only so many last names to go around. There aren't really common names like Bob or Barbara, and there's definitely no Junior or the second. Everybody wants their own names, and they want their kids' names to be unique and meaningful. Sometimes a name can just be taken at face value. A guy's name could be about being bold and expressive, like our good old friend Chow Yun-fat from the thumbnail. Yun-fat is Cantonese, Run-fa is his name in Mandarin, or enhance and express. A girl's name could be something beautiful, like how Ming-Na Wen's name is Ming-Na, or bright elegance. Things occasionally got a little weird during the Cultural Revolution, with names like Xuejun, literally learn military, A lot of people have that name, but that could probably be a whole other video itself. Leave a note in the comments below if you would like to see something like that. Other times, names may be referencing or alluding to classic philosophy or literature. For example, there was a politician in China during the nationalist days whose first name was Delin, or literally virtue neighbor. Now, this is shorthand, so these are two characters that are taken out of a famous Confucius quote, 德不孤必有邻. Delin, the first and the last character of that Confucius quote. The virtuous are not alone, there are sure to be neighbors. Or virtue brings not loneliness, but instead companions, right? Sounds very nice. These would be values that his parents wanted him to grow up cherishing and or embodying. Chinese people also use what's called generation names to distinguish individual generations. If parents have multiple children, they will often give them 2-character first names, right? 2-character personal names, with each sibling having the same first character, but a unique second character. Sometimes a family will have an entire poem called a 派字歌, literally arranged word song worked out to determine what each successive generation will need to name their kids. How does that work? Let's take the poem of the Luo family as an example. The first line is 宗守世享长荣大开家运. Uphold ancestral traditions and enjoy a high position for a long time, thus flourish and bring forth the family's fortunes. That is a set motto of the Luo family. Just for example, say a couple of the first generation of the Luo family has a son and a daughter. The first character of these kids' name would be the first character in the poem, which is zong for this poem, right? Or ancestor. For example, you could name the son something like Luo, right? Luo is the surname, Luo is the family name. Luo zong from the poem Ye, okay, Luo Zong Ye, which means carrying out the deeds of one's ancestors. And the daughter could be named Luo Zong Ru, which means like one's ancestors, right? So the Luo and the Zong are the same in both the son and the daughter, but then the very last character is different. So let's say that the son also has a son and a daughter. When he names his kids, he would move on to the next character in the poem for the first character in their given name, which in this case is shou, or uphold. So for example, his son could be Luo, right? Same family name, Luo, but instead of Zong, it's shou, Luo shou ren, which means uphold your duty. And his daughter could be Luo shou qing, which means uphold purity. The generation after that would be Luo shi something, and then Luo xiang something, and so on and so forth, according to each subsequent character of the poem. As a side note, it's considered rude for the names of children to share the same characters as those of the previous generations. Okay, to a Westerner, that's a little bit mind-blowing, right? Because oftentimes you will have, you know, David the 7th or whatever. Fathers will name their sons the same name as their name. But in Chinese culture, that's considered incredibly rude. And way back in the day, if you were reading a book and you came across a character that is the same character that is in your father's name, you are not allowed to read that out loud. Not only can you not have the same name as your parents, you can't even say their names out loud. That is too rude. That is a big difference in cultures there. If we go even deeper, the Chinese concept of the 5 elements, 金, 木, 水, 火, 土, can come into play. We all have these energies within us, but you may have too much of one thing or too little of another. So people will look at their children's horoscopes or mingpan to try to put together names that will make up for weaker elements or suppress stronger ones. For instance, if you're strong in metal, then your parents might use characters with a wood radical to counteract that. Since the 5 elements theory, metal suppresses wood, right? So something like forest, lin, right? Because that character has 2 wood radicals in it, right? And you say, you wanna know what? I got way too much metal. 2 woods is not enough. Hey, no problem. Then add the word sun. That has 3 wood radicals in it. You are triple wood now. That's pretty good. You might be asking yourself, you might say, hey, Jared, you want to know what? I'm weak in every single element. I am a weak, sickly person, and my 5 elements are all bad. What do I do? Well, you want to know what? The Chinese have a solution for that too, because there was once a person that was in that situation, right? The guy came over, read the horoscope, and said, you are weak at everything. What are we going to do? We're going to name that person Jin Zao Mu. Okay, so if you look carefully, it has all 5 elements in his name. The first character is metal. The second is a combination of fire and earth radicals. And the third is a combination of water and wood radicals. It's said that balanced elements can lead to a balanced life. So a carefully selected name like that can smooth out the rough patches of your life's journey. Hopefully. And that's basically how Chinese names work. But hold on. You might say, does that mean that the given names of Confucius, Kongzi, and Laozi were just Zi or something? That doesn't seem very unique or balanced. No, it's not, because that would be a silly given name. In the case of all those famous philosophers, Kongzi, right, Confucius, Laozi, Mencius, Mengzi, Zhuangzi, Xunzi, so their surname plus Zi was an honorific name given out of respect and reverence for great thinkers. If people put a Zi after your name, that meant you were definitely some kind of wise sage. A couple fun facts in case you're wondering. Firstly, Lao Tzu's surname wasn't actually Lao because that means old. As cool as it is, that wasn't his actual last name. Even that part of his name was coined out of respect, basically translating as old master. Pretty cool. Secondly, Confucius and Mencius's name end in that weird shus thing because early Western missionaries Romanized the Z as C-I-U-S. Shus, Confucius. And so that just kind of stuck. So that's why we still use those names today. Since we're talking about history, if you've watched any historical films or drama, you might have seen other people with some kind of alternate name that's not Zi, like how Zhuge Liang is also called Kong Ming. Well, back in the day, that alternate name would be what's called a courtesy name, given at adulthood as a sign of maturity, respect, and moral integrity, which would then be used in all public settings. The given name would be only for the elders to use. Everyone else would use your new fancy schmancy big boy name. This mostly fell out of use after the end of dynastic China, though. And you're not really going to see any more of those. Wait. What about emperors, you ask? Why do Chinese emperors have names that don't seem to follow any of these principles at all? And you never hear about their surnames, given names, honorific names, or courtesy names. Well, that simple question has a very complicated and 3-part answer with a lot of complex history behind it. Try and keep it simple. To use 3 of China's greatest emperors as example, Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty is called Han Wu Di. Han is the Han Dynasty, Wu means marshal, and that's a posthumous name given for historical and religious purposes. Posthumous names often represented an emperor's achievements during his reign. And Di just means emperor. That's emperor name number 1. Emperor Taizong of the Tang Dynasty is called Tang Taizong. Tang is, again, the Tang Dynasty. Taizong means grand ancestor and is a temple name that was given after death. Temple names were designed only for really good rulers and had a very specific system where the first character was determined by their deeds in life and the second character was determined by whether they were more successful or more virtuous. That's emperor name number 2. The Kangxi Emperor of the Qing Dynasty's name Kangxi means healthy and bright and was derived from the era name in which he ruled. Emperors used these era names to divide and organize their reign to serve as a calendar of sorts. Some, like Kangxi, just used one era name during his 61-year reign, while the previously mentioned Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty used 11 over his 54-year reign. While most of Asia, including mainland China, have abandoned this practice, Taiwan and Japan still keep the spirit of the era name alive in their own way. Since the founding of the Republic of China in 1912, which Taiwan still calls itself, they have used the Republic of China, or Minguo, calendar in official documents, with 1912 being year one of that era. As for Japan, because they still have an emperor, they've kept this system going just like the Ming and Qing dynasties. One emperor, one era name. In addition to their surnames, given names, and courtesy names, each of these three emperors, Han Wudi, Tang Taizong, and Kangxi, technically have their own posthumous, temple, and era names as well. It's just that over these thousands of years of history, some names became more commonly used than others. We have all these ways of giving a name, but really it comes down to what the parents decide. How are they going to give their children their names, right? Sometimes the name comes from the family thing, right? So you have the surname and then you have the whole poem that's written out. And so the name kind of makes itself. Some people are much more into the 5 elements and keeping the person balanced. And so they'll invite a professional over to give a name. I mean, that is a profession in China, giving people really good names. Some people will just be like, you want to know what? I want my son to be awesome. Let's just add Wei. That's awesome. So surname and Wei, you're going to see a lot of people like that. So it just depends on the parents. It also depends on the region. Sometimes there will be different traditions in the regions. A lot of times it's the family or what grandpa wants. And with that surprise history lesson, I hope that explains the building blocks, philosophy, and some of the inner workings behind Chinese naming schemes. And I hope it answers most of the burning questions that you may have had. Is there anything else about names that you're unsure of? Do you know of any silly or cool Chinese names? Go ahead and put those in the comments below. And until next time, I'm Jared Madsen, and I hope that you can find your inner balance.